All right. Hi, my name is Alex,
Hi, my name is Dante.
Hi, my name is Abdurrahman.
And I'm Rashid.
and our project was FRAYS Park. So, as you can see here, FRAYS Park is located northwest of Kalamazoo in the Westwood neighborhood. The land was donated in 1979 by Helen FRAYS in memory of her late husband. Many residents think it's a neighborhood park, but it is owned by the city and therefore available for anyone to use. There were some minor renovations done in 2018, which are not currently reflected here on Google Earth, but included a new 8-foot wide paved walking path, a new tennis court, and 2 pickleball courts. Despite this, we thought there were some aspects that were missing from the park. We thought it was odd that a park of this size didn't have, a picnic pavilion. Additionally, the current playground equipment is designed for kids ages 5 to 12 years, and we felt given the size of the neighborhood, it would be good to add an additional playground equipment for ages 2 to 5. And finally, we also looked at adding a soccer field and a basketball court. So the two big constraints that we ran into for this park were firstly that any tree removal requires approval by the city tree committee. And to get this approval, you have to have a legitimate reason for wanting the tree removed, such as a disease. You can't just want it gone because it's in your way. And when we visited the park last spring, we saw that a lot of trees had already been marked for removal. And when we came back in September, these trees had been removed, and we didn't think there were really any we could legitimately remove. So as you'll see, that was one of the factors that guided our decision making as to where things would be placed around the park. Secondly, our budget was only $500,000, and this is further restricted by the fact that the city of Kalamazoo still uses prevailing wages, despite the state of Michigan ceasing this practice in 2018. And what that means, just overall, is that there was going to be an additional labor cost that we'd have to factor in against that budget, which means there were a few ideas we had that we couldn't really explore.
For a park layout, we have identified 8 zones for potential developments. The zones were selected based on the empty space of trees in different areas as well as the ground level of that area. The main purpose of breaking down the park into zones is to help us to identify the additions and the equipment we need for each zone. There are 4 zones are lifted as a green space, while other 4 zones were developed as highlighted in red square. Here is an AutoCAD drawing for the park layout. As you can see from the left side of the drawing, we have zone 1 for the soccer field, and next to it we have the basketball court in zone 4. As you go right of the drawing, we have zone 6 for picnic pavilion, and zone 7 was selected to be the playground for kids. The idea that we came up with, which makes the park special in the design, is to make it an easy, accessible facility and closer from each other for people who want to use the sports fields or pavilion, or even the parents who want to watch their children playing in the playing ground area. So, Zone 1 was selected to be a soccer field because it's the second largest zone in the park by 16,000 foot square. Additionally, the zone is already flatted ground, which means we only need to do a grass trimming that will be required in preparation for its use. This is one of the common requests from the community member was brought up. Due to the empty space of that area from trees, and some of the community members came to play soccer in that green space, we found it's a sufficient place to install a soccer field. The soccer field dimensions 160 feet by 100 feet, which is a very suitable for Zone 1, and field doesn't need any soil work because the ground surface is flat and ready to use. The soccer field need equipment like any other sports, which is the soccer goal. So with that, we found very good choice, a movable goal made of aluminum with the best size that will be perfect for kids to use, which is 8 by 24 feet. The design for the field meant for kids for 9 years old, more likely not a professional soccer field for professional use. Next slide, please. One of the requests that came up from the community member in that area is to include a basketball court. The idea was brought up in the city meetings. We decided to install 3x4 size basketball court with the 3 basketball rims to provide a place for anyone to play. Zone 4 is located next to the current tennis court and surrounded on eastern side by trees. This reduces the potential area from noise to the neighbor and to eliminate more people from outside the community to play as per their community suggestions. With that, pass it to Dante.
Thank you, Abdul. So kind of with what Abdul was saying, so the main focus on why we decided on the 3/4 basketball court was just a request from the community members was to limit the noise levels. They didn't want that to increase, as well as any headlights that would come in late at night in the park. And so we came up with this design that was 50 by 75 feet. It would be high school court lines painted, marked up, and with your standard typical 10-foot baskets. For the actual basketball court, we have here a cross section of our asphalt top. And with that, we got our calculations. We got excavation calculations, a 6-inch of subgrade class 2 sand, 4-inch subbase, 21 AA crushed concrete, and 2.5 inches of asphalt pavement. And we will get into each of these here. So by using Google Earth, which was the best method that we had due to the circumstances, we found that the elevations in this particular zone 4 varied from 940 feet all the way up to elevation of 960 feet, which is about a 20-foot difference. And so what we ended up doing is we broke it up into 4 equal sections with corresponding elevations, and we took then the areas of each of these sections to correspond to the excavation up until the 939 feet elevation, which we needed 1 foot below the lowest point. And this just shows our calculations that we got to get these quantities. Our area was 80 by 55 feet, and we did this because our basketball court was 75 by 50 feet. And this gives workability space. And as I mentioned, we broke it up into 4 groups. And with all these sections added up, we came up with 1,865 yards cubed for total excavation for the basketball court. For the total fill sand, we're using class 2 fill sand for our sub base. We chose 4 inches, and then we would have 6 inches of 21 AA crushed concrete, which is optimal for this design that we have, and 2.5 inches of asphalt pavement on top, which is also typical and standard for an outdoor basketball court. That would be sufficient. Zone 6, 7, and 8. So zone 6 was chosen for the pavilion because of its close proximities by the entrances. As you see in the figure, they have already paved a path right there, so it would make easy access for all the park goers. This is where most of the park volume would be at too. Zone 7 was chosen, and there's a figure of the pavilion. Zone 7 was chosen for the playground for ages 2 to 5, as was mentioned before. And this was chosen close to the pavilion so that the parents and guardians can keep a close eye on their kids, and it makes the most sense to have all the playground equipment next to each other in the park. Zone 8, we decided to leave as green space, and this was because this was the extended section of the park, kind of towards the end of the park where not a lot of people go to. And we just thought it was best just to leave it like that, and for future additions or other ideas. And so here we have a picture of our pavilion design that we came up with, the icon. So we have here on our longest section 21 feet and 5 inches, and our shortest section 18 feet by 9 and 11/16 inches. And that is just how the geometry ended up working out. We have a unique hexagonal shape that we decided to choose just to give the park a unique look and unique touch. And as mentioned before, could you go back to the previous one? And as mentioned before, this was something that we discussed with Icon, and this is their, just to make that clear, this is their drawing. Their C25-9TMP5. And so for the pavilion design, the columns are made of A50 grade B steel, HSS 3.5, 3.5 by 1/8. Our columns are spaced out evenly at 60-degree angles, and this is sufficient to allow for the most space for the columns to be spaced out due to our hexagonal shape. Our plates are made out of A36 steel. We have an open couplet at the top of the structure. And this is to allow for the maximum amount of sunlight as well as a beautification purpose. And this is also an optimal design that we thought would be best suited for this park. It's very spacious seating and encourages natural light. And with every pavilion, we need a concrete slab and base to support this pavilion on top and support the weight. And so here we have a cross section of our concrete slab and as well as the subgrade and the sub base. And this consists of 4 inches of standard concrete pavement, 4 inches underneath of 21 AA crushed concrete, and again, pretty similar to our basketball court, 4 inches of class 2 filled sand. Our concrete slab was 24 feet by 21 feet. And these dimensions we got using the 2-foot rule clearance of the ends of our pavilions. And this is to allow for the water to fall right on top of the concrete slab so it doesn't create a crater around the slab. And with our calculations, we were able to come up with 7 cubic yards of concrete after rounding up.
Our playground equipment is rated for ages 2 to 5 years. This is to complement the existing equipment, which is rated for ages 5 to 12 years, with the location being next to the existing playground equipment. It will allow guardians, It will allow guardians to keep an eye on all kids in their care, both ones using the existing equipment as well as ones using the new equipment, as both will be located in sight lines of the pavilion. Guardians will not be too far away at any given time. The equipment will also be located far enough back from the walking path to ensure child safety from pedestrians and bikers on the path. Next, please. The board and play is a board rubber service. The rubber band is made of recycled tire rubber. We looked at that for sustainability, but it was too expensive to work in the budget. Next. This playground equipment design we have selected from landscape structures. This design covers an area of 1,679 square feet with a maximum full height of 96 inches. The design features a slide on a clips net as well as several smaller play features. We felt that this design was the best because it offered the most variety of the designs we looked at. This equipment is rated for ages 2 to 5 years. This is to complement the existing equipment, which is rated for years 5 to 12 years.
So one thing we noticed while visiting the park is that it's a little hard to tell where it is. As you can see here, it's surrounded on both sides by houses, and so it's not very visible from the street. You might just think it's more houses. So as a result, we're going to be adding signs to the northeast entrance, northwest entrance, southeast entrance, and southwest entrance to help increase visibility of the park. And so these are the 4 official entrances to the park. Obviously some people, especially towards the south end, kind of like to come in from their yard. But these are the 4 main entrances. And then 4 signs. The city has a standard design that consists of the Parks Department logo, the name of the park, and the address of the park, as you can see here. And one of these will once again be placed at each entrance of the park. This is our construction schedule. Using Microsoft Project's auto schedule function, we calculated a schedule of 19 working days. We felt this was reasonable based on our collective industry knowledge. And it's important to note that this is a hypothetical schedule for the project because the city manages so many parks. They try to spread what funding they have available year to year around all parts of the city. And so it's unlikely that the city will actually implement this design next year, but we still felt it would be a good idea to include a schedule as a baseline for the city to work with that they can adjust based on contractor availability and how aggressive they may want to get with actually implementing the design.
Our project is restricted from the City of Kalamazoo Parks Department in a budget of $500,000, but we came up with the final cost for the project's $447,000. Here is a final cost estimate breakdown. The total cost was estimated as bare cost of the construction and is evaluated by the material cost and associated with the labor cost for each zone. We also considered the other additional costs, for example, the rental equipment cost and contractor profit. The estimated final cost for the picnic pavilion in Zone 6 is $93,000, while the final cost for the playground equipment in Zone 7 was estimated to be $125,000. The final estimated cost also includes the signage and entrances cost, and it was estimated $4,000, as well as the basketball court and soccer field was estimated for both fields to be $200,000. This is include the material for pavement for basketball court and the equipment we need for each field, plus the labor's cost. We also considered from the total cost of the profit, the contractor profit. The contractor profit margin was estimated around 5% for a small project like this, and also given around $15,000 and $500,000 profit.
Overall, we felt that this design will give the park a fresh look that will really help attract people to it. The aspects we've added are unique and will really help set the park apart. Meets the wants of the community while respecting their wishes to have the noise and light levels remain low so as not to disturb them. Finally, it also provides the city with a foundation for future development. The zones we did not use in this project can provide a starting point for any future items the city may wish to add. Additionally, there will be a recent geotechnical information provided as part of the site investigation, which will speed the design process for any future works. Finally, because this is a city project, city policy dictates that a minimum of 2 town halls be held with residents in the neighborhood before any plan can be finalized. So the city can present this design to residents, and they can adjust the design as necessary. This isn't to say that our design isn't adequate, but it does reflect the current desires of the community, and these could change in the next couple of years, and we've made this design flexible enough to allow for that. And so we'd like to thank the following people. Firstly, Dr. Decker Haynes, our faculty advisor, for his help in the research process, as well as the report and presentation writing. Our sponsor, Patrick McVeary with the City of Kalamazoo Parks and Recreation Department. He was really helpful in getting us off the ground and providing us with information regarding the 2018 renovations. Also, Rachel Hughes-Nilsson with OCBA Landscape Architects. She was really helpful with working on us on a lot of the small details, including alerting us to the prevailing wages issue. Finally, Jennifer R. Smith with Ventura. She gave us a lot of information regarding the playground equipment, and so a big part of that is thanks to her. We'd like to thank you all for attending our presentation, and are there any questions?
At this time, we'll take some questions from our jury. I do have a question that came in on a chat. I'll go ahead and ask it. It's a good question. Have you considered extra parking to accommodate the new park features, such as a soccer field that may bring in new or more traffic?
So we did look at the early stages of adding a park. Unfortunately, and I can go back to the map here. If you look on the left side of your screen, there's not really any space available for parking. As we said, it's kind of hemmed in on all sides by houses. So there's not really, that's all private property. And if you look to the left of the screen, just north of the park is a big swath of land that we looked at possibly putting a parking lot into. But the city does not own that land. And so really that's kind of where that idea died. We just didn't have an idea where we could look to put any parking.
Other questions from our jury?
Hey, this is Paul Pagano. I know you guys had a very strict budget for this one. Did you guys include any contingency, or is there any design or construction oversight fees that you had to include in your bid?
Yep. So for our final cost estimate, we did leave a little, I guess, wiggle room, so to call, for that kind of stuff to happen. You could pull it up to the final cost estimate. And that's why we also included right there our contractor profit, which usually varies, project to project. And considering since it's a small scale project, we thought that 5% contractor profit was optimal. Considering the fact that it's usually around like 2-3%, it's pretty good rule of thumb for projects. But maintenance wise and all those other, I guess, overhead costs, we did leave a little work room in the budget that we think would bring us right up until that 500,000.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Other questions from our jury?
This is Craig. I've got a kind of a hard question for you. This project's a little different, but what did you actually look at to design as a design component here to apply some civil engineering, technical?
Yep. And so for this project, since it was a little complex and different things, and due to certain situations that came about during the project, our main focus was kind of the geotechnical aspect. And so that's where we have kind of those excavation, those cut and fill values, as well as the materials used for our geotechnical base as well, and the concrete slab as well. We know that the pavilion belongs to Icon, so we cannot take responsibility for that, and as well as the playground design. But we mostly focused on the construction process, making the final cost estimates, and putting the needs of the community first. And so there could be other things that we could have designed, but based on the needs of the community, we thought that this was the best to address those priority needs first.
Did you look at any kind of drainage calcs, any drainage, water control, soccer field drainage control, anything with drainage, stormwater calcs?
No, we did not for this project. Like I said, soccer field, we kind of just left it like that because it was the most relatively flat out of all of our zones, which was at 940 feet in elevations, but we did not take those into consideration.
Okay, a nice presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Dane Lewis with AR Engineering, and hopefully somebody didn't ask this question. I lost internet for a couple minutes there. But did you look at like a surface color coding for the basketball court? It looks like from your estimate, you've assumed just asphalt with some pavement striping for the circles, etc. Is that the correct assumption? And did you look at surface coating options and pricing of that?
Yeah, so this is something that also came up with the tennis court as well, as well as other previous projects that the city had run into. And so what the city had found out is that for some reason the contractors that they had used for those type of coatings that go on top for the asphalt to kind of like protect and preserve it. They were having issues and actually causing cracks within like a year or two right off the back, which is not something typical that you'd want to see. And so we thought that these costs would go more towards the maintenance side, and we left wiggle room for that in our final cost estimate, and that's why our number isn't as close to 500,000. But we know it wouldn't be such a big value that it would exceed our price, but it was taken into consideration, but it wasn't included because we wanted to, I guess, include that for more maintenance.
Gotcha. Just as a FYI, great. Just as a FYI, we've done like a post-tension concrete instead of the asphalt. That helps with some of that cracking, and the surface coating is the same on that versus asphalt. So another option that you might consider as well. So great presentation. Good job, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what is the reason for not evaluating alternatives for the pavilion rather than just, I mean, you picked up one commercially available one, but you could have looked at alternatives. So what is the reason for not looking at alternatives to cut down the prices? I mean, you didn't do any comparison.
So this is something that we, like I said, we ran into an issue during the semester. We had different components and different things that we were looking into. And this was just the best option that we discussed with Icon due to the number of people and as well design parameters that we were looking into as well. So it's not just something that I guess that we just kind of just clicked and then sent. It was something that was taken into consideration and as well discussed with Icon as well.
I have a quick question. This is Anna Horner. I'm just because you have the screen pulled up maybe, but I'm interested in your total restoration area of only being 50 square feet and wondering if you considered any construction staging and impact that might have to your total project and what you have to do at the end to clean up.
Yep, so that's also, we also thought that number was, I guess, a little bit on the small side. This is just kind of like roughly, that number was roughly calculated off of the excavation areas that we used. And so that was the amount that was left over on those edges. And so the other, I guess, couple square feet, we didn't take it to consideration, which is also something that I guess we would plan to add on for maintenance, which is, I guess, a really good way to show why we were, again, under budget to allow for that wiggle room. And it's only, I guess, $5 a square foot. And of course, accounting to other different things, but we feel like it wouldn't, I guess, greatly change the final cost estimate drastically.
Okay, well, you're on the side of caution that give a contractor an inch and they'll take a mile.
Yeah.
Unintended.